Yoshi is unlikely to win it. So to me, eyes on the jungle here. What can this Wukong do?
Yeah, it will be up to Swamp to force those early plays, find the early aggression to get the team rolling. GP, a very, very scary counter pick into the best of Nars. Yoshi not really proving himself to even be in that bracket yet, so definitely an uphill battle around the top side, but we get another look at the final team compositions as they shake out. Tell me about this mid lane matchup a little bit here. I'm not the biggest expert on mid lane. Who's thought to win the early game between Azir and Zoe?
So Zoe's actually one of the most, one of the strongest early game mid laners for the most part. Just landing a simple sleepy trouble will often just means you win out that trade, and especially once you start hitting that, lost chapter mark, you don't even need the full mythic. Just the lost chapter alone often means that you win out the lane because you just keep poking away. And for the Azir here, Azir's got good answering poke, which is why we're seeing it picked here, but it's a lot smaller chip damage, so you do have to build it up. And I don't think we're going to see the Azir win out early. In terms of shove, you also don't really have the priority over Zoe. They're picking it more for skill and up, and I hope that AXIZ recognizes that, respects that. If you are going to play around that, it's going to be more on your jungler trying to get in there and actually getting the engage for you rather than looking at the Azir to set you up overly much.
Yeah, for sure. As you do mention about that Azir poke damage, we take a look at the runes. It will be that Summon Airy picked up for Mega Man. A lot of times the default poke rune, either that or Comet, but the Airy, of course, a little bit less damage, but it's guaranteed damage as compared to the Comet, which isn't always bound to hit. Anything else jump out to you with these setups here, RMC?
Fleet footwork for hybrid there in the bot side, and well, for Sanctuary here, both of them really going a little bit for that sustain. Usually, we've been seeing lethal tempo come through for a lot of these AD carries. Top side though, Nap is already starting to bully out Yellow Yoshi, level 1 trading in on this.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the power of the Trial by Fire passive early on. Although Yellow Yoshi trying to respond here, does have the D-Shield, will be ticking up some regen, but people underestimate just how hard that GP hits with the melee auto attacks with that passive early. Definitely already off to a great start is Nap now. Going to have full priority in that lane. Hopefully get an early shove off, get a nice reset, and be ready to impact the map as things go on. But as we look at this jungle start, looks like it's going to be parallel here between these two, both working their way up towards top.
Yeah, and I do want to talk a little bit more about that top lane, because you mentioned the D-Shield for Yellow Yoshi here, which is a safer, more conservative start. But when you're going for those heavy trades here, Corrupting Pot really does win out early. So I think Nap recognized that, saw that, and was like, hey, if we're going to fight level 1, your D-Shield takes time to really take over. The big part about D-Shield is the sustain it gives you in lane, all the healing, the regeneration. I'll take my Corrupting Pot for my immediate regeneration here, as well as the further burn, and I'll win out this trade, take possession early, which isn't how this lane is supposed to go between Nar and GP.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a bad omen to begin with, as AXIZ is giving us more bad omens with a little bit of a pause here. Not how you want to start off the day, but we will just have to wait and see how that does get resolved. Any other points on this early game and what you expect to see to jump out while we're waiting a little bit just to see if this pause gets resolved quickly?
I mean, both junglers starting bot side, Infinite Dodge, like you're pointing out, so expect to see, top side attention. Interestingly, they're going to isolate the bot lanes a little bit, which actually should favor AXIZ here, as much as Nautilus does kind of have some early threat onto the Renata. A lot of it is conditional on having the follow-up, and Jinx early on won't have the ability to pump out as much damage as Aphelios. So AXIZ, there's a window of opportunity for them here, for Sanctuary to try and show that once again, he deserves to be in that conversation for top 3 AD carry spots.
Yeah, it's I think really interesting that both of these AD carries here opted for fleet footwork. As we're right back in the game, huzzah, no long pauses for us. Both of them really saying we just want to survive this lane and get to our late game, which is understandable, but as you point out, that might give the advantage to Aphelios, as Nap probably fine here is forced to flash. The wave's not in the best spot either, but Shin is hovering. Gets a nice pillar.
Okay.
But nothing doing off that one.
Still, that is huge Infinite Dodge, because look at Swamp's pathing to get there. Swamp skipped the entire top half of the map to get there in time, and now Kassin can actually kind of sit in there and threaten your blue buff here. We're seeing Kaito also try and pressure up, and I love that Nap canceled the recall, because they're recognizing this as an opportunity to punish Swamp for Yellow Yoshi's poor early game.
Yeah, and that is the full priority coming through from Nap, looking for the roam, looking for the barrel play into the enemy jungle. Going to be setting up, going to be hovering. Kaito as well with the full-on shove, has that sleepy trouble bubble, controls so much space in this jungle, takes the cone away. That's the angle of engage, the angle of escape, and that's just a clean buff steal away.
Yeah, as soon as Swamp had to smite away the Gromp here, AXIZ kind of lost control of the blue buff. CGA could just start it up right away here. And we touched on that mid lane, right? The fact that Zoe early on has more prio is punishing Megumin now. Does Megumin recognize that he might be in danger?
Is going to play it nice and safe. The spacing, very respectful there as that troll comes running on through. And nothing inting coming through from AXIZ so far. Some misplays for sure. That jungle definitely going to be bad for Swamp's pacing, but nothing catastrophic yet. We'll have to see if they can continue to hold up here.
Oh, Nema?
Maybe trying to set a little something up. Nema forced a flash. That's a nice little answer back from AXIZ here.
AXIZ more patient than I thought they'd be. I mean, they saw Nema all on his own, and I thought they're just going to pull the trigger immediately. You've got Gravitum, and you've got Renata. That's more than enough CC to run down a Nautilus. Unfortunately, they kind of waited, and ultimately still burnt the flash, so it's kind of good either way. And I love that AXIZ is playing with this fog of war, with this sort of tempo and timing control. Normally, you expect them to try and push that cheater recall and get back in, but they didn't do that. Doesn't pan out for now, but maybe later on it might be able to when they get a little bit more damage.
Yeah, for sure. Interestingly enough, even though they do recoup the shove here, CJ have had such thorough map control so far. It's nothing but a thing for Kassin to run on over to that first Drake of the game, which is the mountain, and scoop it on up. Trundle having a fine time sustaining off this early, so that's first Drake going over to Crest Gaming.
Yeah, that's the price you pay for that particular attempt down the bot side. Now, I will say, I personally don't think first Drake matters for the most part here. One Drake doesn't give you that much stats. Nema, where are you going, buddy? You've got 0 follow-up here.
Yeah, that was a Hylissang Hex Flash if I've ever seen one. Although I suppose it would have been more Hylissang if he'd actually hooked him there with no allies anywhere close. But Nema playing the hook champ, and when you're playing these hard engaged champs, sometimes the instinct takes over, right? It's just like playing Lee Sin. My mind's telling me no, but my body's telling me yes.
Yeah, as an AXIZ fan, I can definitely sympathize with that. Since Ozaka's definitely had the hook syndrome issue. But no, Nema, okay. Then the thing was, I was a bit worried for Nema because they didn't actually know where Sanctuary was. Neither did they quite know where Swamp was. So it felt a little bit risky there, but wasn't punished whatsoever. And so far, things are still completely even. Kassin now going in again, just going to clear out all the vision. Red buff is about to spawn here, and they would have timers because this is only the second buff. Is Kassin going to go for it? No.
Yeah, going to angle instead towards a mid-gank. The Sleepy Trouble Bubble was landed before the dash could be taken. The burst, pretty decent from Kaito, but nothing lethal. Just going to get a nice chunk out. Trade evened up a little bit by that turret shot on the back half. Anything?
Fighting over this ward? Nah, they're just fighting for control here, and they're just respecting right now that you don't really want to fight with Gravitum Aphelios, especially when Nema's flash is still down. I do want to touch a little bit on mid lane though so far. Kassin's gone by mid lane twice, and I feel like Kassin's really role-playing his character here, kind of trolling a little bit. Neither time did he go for the gank for real. Like the first time, he just walked into lane, didn't wait for Kaito to try and set anything up whatsoever. Second time, Kaito lands a Sleepy Trouble Bubble. Kassin comes in really late after that because he was clearing wards. Literally just goes in, throws a pillar, walks off. Like
it's a dominance move, RMC. True. It's great. No CC, no damage, just vibes. It's giving troll. We love to see it. But we do have a nice little handshake from Asuka. It's red-white guns, but Nemo just Spider-Man's away, so no real kill threat coming out, and this is sort of the pace we've been seeing so far in summer, right? It feels like both of these teams really happy to try and bank on their scaling instead of really trying to force plays early.
Yeah, neither team really feel like they have to do anything. If there's GP for the side of CGA here, and we've already touched on the fact that they've got the ability to siege later. AXIZ right now, they're waiting for their power spikes as well. I think now that Swamp is level 6 and actually has the Cyclone, maybe we'll actually see proper commitment from the side of AXIZ to these plays here. And with that Cyclone as well, you can kind of go to any lane. Wukong does great into GP because you can't cleanse the knock up here. So the oranges don't really matter. Yellow Yoshi can always follow up on that. Bot side, punishable as well, especially if you can get the poke down on Nema early. Mid's a little bit dicier, but Zoe's portal jump does mean that she has to hop back to wherever she originally was at as well.
Hey now, Dice isn't playing in this game, as we see the Hex Flash angle once again, not going to go aggressive. Nema baiting us just a little bit. But it's a great point you bring up about the way that Swamp can impact this top lane and try and get Yellow Yoshi back in. As a GP1 trick, I've felt the pain of knockups many, many times. Eating your oranges, getting your vitamin C does nothing for being knocked into the air.
Yeah, in the first place, I don't understand how vitamin C somehow magically cleanses everything. Like, when I got hit with COVID, vitamin C didn't do squat for me, mate. Like, I don't see how it's going to stop a stun or a silence here. AXIZ, though, gonna start up the Herald, you know, with that strength that they have, Swamp being here, and CGA seemingly content to just give this one up for free.
Yeah, they do get a nice little shove back in bot lane. Jinx staying even with the Aphelios for the most part, but it really felt like the point of strength between these two hyper carriers was going to be maybe Sanctuary's ability to set things up in the early game with the Gravitum Infernum combination. So once that didn't come through, I'd really favor Jinx going into the late game. What about you?
Yeah, well, that's generally what we see is the Jinx outranges the Aphelios a lot in a lot of these team fights. But I am willing to suspend disbelief for a second here in Vintage Dodge because we've seen a couple of the AD carries, you know, here in the LJL really pop up. I mean, Yuhi comes to mind with his Aphelios we saw earlier this split as well. Sometimes, you know, the Infernum can really change the nature of fights even more so than Jinx Rocket can here. So as an AXIZ fan, you know what, I'm going to hold belief in Sanctuary that maybe he can turn things later on, but that's a ways away. We're only 10 minutes in Infinite Dodge, and so far I'm more concentrated on turrets and pressure that we can get down because AXIZ has gotten Herald so far and CJ haven't been able to find anything to sort of answer. So I want to see what Swamp opts to do with this, whether we do see him go down to this bot lane and try and repressure there.
Yeah, he is hovering around the Drake, already going to be started up by Crest Gaming Act. They have such nice vision control behind the pit. They have the Scuttle Relic as well. It's a 2v3 brewing right here. I don't know if you want to take this as AXIZ, but in goes Swamp. Here comes the hostile takeover to actually zone the team away. Megaman threatened the shuffle as well, forced the flash out of Kassin, and that's a nice clean heist. AXIZ come in, they get that Drake right out of CGA's hands.
Really well played from AXIZ there. They recognize the strength that they have with their composition. It's the same way they could kind of just walk into the top side. We touched on that Cyclone. CGA doesn't have an ultimate that, or I guess they do have the depth charge, but they're not as strong in the team fights at this point in the game. So CGA trying to sneak that away, and AXIZ didn't have vision either. They just kind of walked into that and were just like, hey, we think maybe they're doing this. They didn't trade us for Herald earlier because Dragon wasn't up. We can fight this. And they did.
Yeah. Critically as well, it's been quiet on this front for a little while after what was a rough level 1, but if you take a nice check-in on that top lane, Yellow Yoshi weathering the storm, went for those early Ninja Tabby, has been, oh, that was close, has been surviving the poke very well from this GP, and is slightly ahead in CS as we see the all-in in bot lane. Nema getting punished here, but the Moonlight Vigil just completely whiffs, and now the Cannon Barrage will turn it around. Nap was biding his time, he didn't use it for the Dragon as Hybrid flashes under the turret to get excited. The punish isn't going to come through from Swamp either as Kassin cancels it out with that pillar. Beautifully played sequence by Crest Gaming.
And Dodge, you've got to remember, anytime you see a GP in the game, it means the opposite side of the map has to pay special attention. It's like Karthus. It's a global, man. You got to pay attention. Now, Swamp here, losing his red buff, is going to try and contest this one here. Megaman.
Yeah, that was a nice setup. It's going to force out the early wall from the Azir, but it does pick up one, and Kaito forced to sort of scurry on away there. So a nice little bit of payback from AXIZ coming out.
Okay, an answer, and more importantly, Dodge, you know, we're talking about that jungle mid-prio. It's coming through mid lane. The gank is still coming through, but we get a replay of the bot side. And Sanctuary whiffing the Moonlight Vigil to me was the biggest problem. That wasn't even close. I think he just buffered it wrong, unfortunately, and gets punished for it. And the moment, if the Moonlight Vigil landed, they could have still fought that, right? It would have been a 2v1 even if the Cannon Barrage comes down. But the moment they missed that, it wasn't a 2v2 anymore because Nap gets to drop the Cannon Barrage, and we saw in the jungle as well, Kassin was zoning out Swamp.
Yeah, it was a very well-coordinated sequence coming out from CGA. AXIZ going to answer back a little bit there with the Rift Herald, get some plate money for themselves before it does drop off in the mid lane. The gold, though, still very much in the favor of CGA around this 15-minute mark. As we approach it, it's about 1.5K. Very nice. Essentially exactly where we were last time, right? Wasn't that what Jay Real was saying on the desk? History repeats itself here.
A little bit. I mean, last time it felt like they split the map where AXIZ went towards the top half and CJ went to the bot side. This time it feels like they're still trying to contest. Nema completely getting caught out. No flash this time.
Yeah, that's a nice layering of CC. Double Renata CC sets it up Sangchu nicely. That's going to be a great pickup for the Aphelios to get back on the board here. Very, very well done by AXIZ.
Yeah, Sangchu still does have to be careful, though. Hybrid does have the Kraken Slayer completed, so even without his support right now, it's a bit of a tough ask for Sangchu to be able to win this out against Hybrid. But there we go. Plate gold from that Herald here, favoring AXIZ, and AXIZ still down gold. I wonder if that's coming just mostly from the GP passive here, because I'm not seeing... Well, I guess mid lane, there's also a 20 CS differential in favor of Kaito, which... isn't reflected right now, as we saw in that last trade. The 2v2 heavily favors AXIZ in mid jungle currently.
Yeah, definitely. As we do get a nice little check in there, it's, you know, doing a fan broadcast. Sometimes the producers of the official broadcast seem to be fighting the narratives we want to tell, and sometimes they come in exactly on point RMC. We see it is going to be Hybrid holding most of that gold difference for the team there at about 6.5K individually, which is pretty crazy, but it speaks well to the CS differential he's been able to build up, the aggressive, impressive play diving under that turret to pick up a kill. So very, very big stuff coming out from Hybrid, as we kind of expected as well, but that's going to be the Moonlight Vigil into the Gale Force forward. Now the bailout is going to set it up for Sangchu. That's the power of Renata Aphelios.
That's also way closer than it should have been dodged. I mean, Hybrid almost just pulled off a 1v2. No bailout, Sangchu was dead there. And this is Sangchu with Gale Force as well, so really scary for AXIZ and not what you want to see. And when we talk about CGA, we talked a lot about AXIZ's win conditions, but for CGA, what we've seen from them is that they play best when Hybrid's ahead and they play towards that bot side and you leave Nap on an island. Thus far, up to that point, the game has been going that way here. You get Hybrid that lead, you know, Hybrid looks to try and 1v2, looks to try and pop off, carry the game. Look how close that gets. You also even have to flash forward to get the bail out there. I didn't even realize that the first time, but not for that. Sangchu's dead. And then Nap just gets the free scale topside. It's CGA, sure, you know, they got killed, but they are still comfortable. Everything is still going to plan for them.
Yeah, it is going to be another Drake picked up for AXIZ here. The first of those Hex Techs, but if the back is canceled on Megaman, the pick could have been there, but the Sleepy Trouble Bubble not following the path of escape, going to mean there's no further follow-up available now for AXIZ. Going to drop this second Herald, just try and crack this tier 1 mid.
Yeah, and TP immediately from Megaman to come back. He has to be careful he doesn't get dove. Nema's actually here, and if Nema just pulls the trigger...
Yeah, that's big burst coming out from the Zoe. Could have set up some further troubles for the AXIZ mid laner, but not going to make fried chicken out of him. Meanwhile, it'll be the other solo laner of Crest Gaming, who does actually make good on a push, picks up a turret for CGA, equals up the turret score at 1 apiece. This GP really starting to come online. Now they'll have the Triforce complete.
Exactly, and now Nap could potentially get unleashed onto the map as well here. Those barrels could potentially hurt. We've already seen the cannon barrage actually really chunk out Sangchu and Ozika, so imagine that with the barrels when it comes to these objective fights. No objectives to be had though. Second Herald's already down. Dragon just went the way of AXIZ not too long ago either here, so for CGA, a bit of just a holding pattern right now to just wait for those objectives to spawn before they fight. They are not in a rush whatsoever.
Yeah, we often say that in these low state opportunities, and yet it feels like in the LJL teams always find a way to make a boo-boo, and it looks like Megaman has made one. No, nice mobile chicken right there. Going to scuttle on out of the top lane. Going to have to find another opportunity for a Punisher's Crest Gaming. They'll go back to playing the waiting game.
I feel like chicken's not being fair to Megaman here. I mean, that if you ruin that fast, that chicken's got wings. What's an edible fowl here, Dodge, that flies?
Yeah, because turkeys don't fly, chickens don't fly, ducks kind of fly. Not for very long at a time, but they'll do it.
I mean, if he's
People
got
eat
water
duck.
walking, he's a duck, right?
Oh, true! Megaman with the waterfowl cosplay as Swamp just getting trolled by these pillars. It feels like all Kassin can sort of do at this point. They don't want to blow up anybody's spot. They don't want to start a real fight with no objective on the map. I mean, these teams really just trying to be patient, and sometimes that means just throwing out random pillars.
Yeah, and Kassin really hasn't had as much of an impact as I'd like to see. I mean, oftentimes you see the Trundle being picked against Wukong to try and beat out and bully Wukong in the 1v1 earlier on. And Kassin even went in, invaded, got the blue buff away, and since then has been a non-factor. He's 0-1-0. And for the Trundle, I'm just getting a little bit worried that, hey, you're not doing anything. Soon you're just going to be relegated to that pillar bot and subjugate bot to just stop AXIZ from engaging onto you. It's a valid strat, but come on, is that really the way any jungler wants to play?
No, it's not. And it's sort of a scary proposition, the lack of impact that Kassin has had, right? Because we came into this game with the expectation that, sure, it could go either way, but I think we were all feeling CGA a tad on the desk. It felt like they were in the better position. But if you look at these standings, RMC, it's one game separating these teams. They'll be tied up if AXIZ can actually take this one home. And the less action you're able to generate in the early game to get this Zoe snowballing, to really make the Trundle scary, the more that scaling on the side of AXIZ is going to start to worry you.
True, and ever since pretty much, day 5, I'd say, for AXIZ, the early game has been a problem for them where they do fall behind and then they have to play on the back foot. Now, if they're coming at the 20-minute mark here, Dodge, and they're pretty much dead even, 500 gold does not matter at the 20-minute mark here. They are in a position to actually make things happen, and granted, Azuka doesn't have the engage.
Oh, the cannon barrage snipe out for 1 health, just like that. An inch was given, a mile was taken, and now it might just be the game taken as well, as CGA responding to the very late roams of AXIZ, just going to zone them out and even find another pick perhaps onto Asuka, forced to use that hostile takeover defensively, but they're right there to take the Baron.
On spawn, pretty much there. It could not have gone better for CGA, and I know Dodgers said that CGA are waiting for objectives. I didn't expect them to be doing a Baron of all objectives here. AXIZ can't even contest this. Losing Swamp and Sanctuary was just too big a loss.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. You look at this team composition as well, the Baron taking capabilities of a GP, Trundle, Jinx, even at 20 minutes, that Purple Worm melted like butter. A very, very big swing for CGA here. They have so much standing gold to collect on the map with this buff as well.
Yeah, and the setup for this from CGA, we've touched on their sieging capabilities here, but it's on complete display right here. It wasn't even the Sleepy Trouble bubble. It was just a straight paddle star being set up by the slow from Jinx. And the problem was the TPs from Yellow Yoshi and Megaman. The call, I think, was okay. Like the idea was good. If they got the flank off and Sanctuary and Swamp were still up, as long as Swamp was still up, they could have fought that. But the problem's Swamp and Sanctuary just died way, way too quickly. And now AXIZ, they get themselves at Soul Point, but CJ don't care about dragons. They've got Baron buff here. They want to take turrets. They want to take your base.
Yeah, it's not the Soul Drake, right? So what do they mind trading 2 turrets for that? It's going to go great. They even get Megaman stopwatch here and force the flash as well on the siege. This Baron buff already been a success, and they still have it for a sizable amount of time to start hitting these tier 2s in the side lanes.
Yeah, if anything, they can just go, right, as you said, to those side lanes here. Bot side still has a tier 1 turret if they want to pick that up. And AXIZ here, they're rotating, trying to match, but they have to be careful. If they do get picked off again, well, we've seen that combo before, and Cannon Barrage right now is such a strong enabling tool to set up, force Zoe Sleepy Trouble bubbles, pardon me, to try and cut AXIZ off from even approaching these turrets right now.
Yeah, the range difference between these comps really coming to bear onto the face of AXIZ. Hybrid snaps it up, snipes through onto Asuka. No bailout going to save you there when you've been put to sleep. And this has been a huge swing already. The power play is about 5K. CGA looking absolutely poised to take this one home at this point.
500 gold, Dodge, to 5,000 gold in the span of 2 minutes here, or slightly over that as Baron ticks down to the last minute. And CGA, they're in a great position. And this is when a siege comp looks most dangerous. When you're sieging, when you're on the front foot here, when you get to just kind of push AXIZ into a rough spot. And you're seeing that, yeah, they're just throwing out CP Trouble bubbles. They're just throwing out those zaps. If it hits, we kill. If it doesn't hit, no problem. Just wait for cooldown. Swamp here Does he know? It
Hmm.
felt like they almost knew with the way they're stepping up there.
Yeah.
But yeah, CGA respecting that they're not quite willing to go for that 2v2 just yet.
No, it's a bit of a task when you take your two lowest income members and tell them to find a pick all on their own. You know, you don't want that Baron ego to start to get to you. Oh, guys, we're so ahead now. If those players were unstoppable, yeah, but the Trundle and the Nautilus aren't ahead. I mean, it's poverty for the Nautilus. Doesn't even have a mythic yet. As Naukazin may be trying to force something, but still has to be cautious. Just going to take the tier 1 instead. That's a fine prize.
Yeah, they're pushing it. We're seeing a ton of pings onto mid lane here. They're telling Sanctuary to push this, but I actually don't think it's safe for Sanctuary to go here. Nap is up here. Cannon Barrage is available, and Mega Man again. Oh.
Yeah, it's a scary situation for these squishy carries of AXIZ. Just feels like they have no recourse against all of this burst flying in from a million miles away. Cannon Barrage available as well. That's the Sleepy Trouble Bubble. The hostile takeover connects with absolutely nothing, as maybe Nema going a bit too far. Asuka still alive for now, even has the bailout, will get the revive off of the takedown as well. So that's just the overextension. We talked about maybe the cockiness coming through for Nema, and they still have two members mid-arm, see?
Yeah, I think that was more just they're trying to make something happen here. It was a race against time, because in that 2v1, Nap was slowly getting pushed away. Nema ends up trading his life for turret. Kind of worth it for CGA if we're looking at straight numbers, but I think AXIZ breathing a bit of a sigh of relief. They managed to answer mid lane. They managed to get a pick or a kill on that bot side, helping to keep themselves still in the game here. And if you watch the way the siege works, I mean, Kaito's getting all the poke here. The problem is that instead of Kaito with Nema, they needed somebody with a bit more sustained damage. And the call was obviously made for them to just abandon Nema. Hybrid, Kassin, they're not going for this. They're focusing down the turret. And that's probably the better strategic call here.
Yeah, absolutely, and it did wind up working out well. And while AXIZ might be breathing a sigh of relief that they survived Baron number 1, that was a 20-minute Baron that eliminated every turret outside of their base. The next one, they will not be anywhere near as lucky, and they're really suffering for lack of vision control on the map right now.
Yeah, they're trying to funnel Sanchu as much as possible. Sanchu did just pick up that top side outer turret as well as that mid side outer turret from the earlier play. But despite that, Sanchu is still an item behind Hybrid here. So for AXIZ, I like that you're funneling gold towards your carries. And yes, both Megaman and Sanchu scale really well, but you're just so far behind. And for CGA, if they just keep pushing, if they just keep sieging, great, you're raising that turret. That turret doesn't mean anything to them. It's what, 2 waves and they can probably take it down.
Yeah. They do have the fake turret. They have the safety and security of something that's not very safe or secure in that Azir turret, as it does tick down. And look at CGA just playing with their range and saying, come on, come contest this Drake. Walk into us. We really, really want you to. I mean, what can AXIZ even do?
I mean, Swamp's looking for a flank here, but the problem is that's not where CGA is. Moonlight Vigil just barely fails to land here. And AXIZ, I like this call. You can't contest that Drake. It's very, very late or early. I mean, it's only second Drake for CGA here. You can afford to give it up, and instead they go for that inner turret.
Yeah, and they do manage to find, it looks like, an escape route where they won't be pinched off either. That Cannon Barrage wave clear with the Ravenous Hydra, though, going to show exactly why so many people are playing the Bruiser style of GP right now. The Hex Gates offer a nice get-out-of-jail-free card for AXIZ, but it might just be another Baron going over to CGA, because look at these health bars. Oh. Very, very close. Asuka definitely shaking in the boots right there, and it doesn't get any easier. They're going to have to reapproach. They're bringing out the flank TP, but the Chompers are good from Hybrid to keep Megaman from finding an angle in. Maybe they've done enough to dissuade it for now, though.
Yeah, with that alone, CGA probably don't want to do this here. And Ozuka was actually caught in a very awkward spot where Ozuka was the one who needed to back. Ozuka was living on a hope and a prayer. Anybody looks at Ozuka funny, he's dead. But he can't, because they needed the hostile takeover there to dissuade the Baron. That's really the thing that CGA is scared of in that Baron power play. Sure, a Megaman flank is scary, Swamp flank is scary, but in a 5v4, they probably still take that unless the hostile takeover causes Hybrid to kill his entire team. So CGA respecting that. They can just go back to Baron, though, and this time they can set up the vision to try and punish AXIZ, set up death bushes. And AXIZ, they don't really have a choice. They have to face check this. The last Baron took everything outside their base. This Baron will start breaking down inside their base.
Yeah, definitely could be the death knell for AXIZ. I just had a grim thought here, RMC, which is that you know, if you're playing against Hybrid, Renata not the worst support to pick up for yourself, because you know he's going to be really fed. Maybe you can get him to kill his own team.
Yeah, I mean, he does have cleanse, so.
Oh no, Hybrid. 200 IQ summoner spell, as it's a 2 IQ attempt at escape from AXIZ. They're just routed. And that opens up the golden path for CGA. They can march right up this river and go and take the Baron they've been eyeing down this whole time. Yeliosh going to try and answer back, but this isn't looking good.
No, not ideal here. And once again, AXIZ just can't contest this Baron. They're going to give it up for free. What else can they find? Sanctuary pushing up mid as well here. They're shoving lanes out best they can. Yellow Yoshi took down inner turret. Actually, with the Trinity Force, he's doing a lot of damage to this inhibitor turret here.
Look at the wave clear from the gangplank, though. The barrel's slowing down Yellow Yoshi, but you don't want to overchase. Sangchu on the flank, but here comes the Sin through the Hex Gates. Easy access. Do they find the 1v1? Yes, they do. Sangchu with the red-white guns saying, I'm a carry. You're just a man in a pirate costume. And that's something for AXIZ.
That's huge for AXIZ. They baited out so well as well, and unfortunately they kind of saw that, hey, Swamp's on the side, but they didn't actually catch Vision and Sanctuary, and that death there onto Nap means that CGA actually can't push out, because if you push out without Nap available, without the cannon barrage or his barrels to help siege here, AXIZ can engage 5v4. So they've burnt out half the burn buff already, infinite dodge, just with that one pick here. And by the time Dragon comes back up as well, the Baron buff would almost have worn off. So AXIZ massive right here.
Yeah, big shutdown right onto the carry you want as well. We look at this Baron power play. It's not even been worth the value of the Baron they took so far. We thought that the second Baron would break the back of AXIZ in this game after the first one went so well, but they have managed to really find themselves a good position here. They're only down about 4.5k. They have brought the gold lead closer to parity, so maybe Sangchu can do it, right? We saw it in LCK the other night, aiming on the Aphelios, the 1v9 in the late game, even as his team desperately tried to throw around him. There's still a chance.
There is. He's only half an item now behind Hybrid, and that's actually pretty significant here, especially once you actually complete the items, then it really narrows that gap. CGA trying to maximize 1 minute left on Baron here. They've called down Nap. Nap is back up. They're looking to siege here, and Megaman off on the side, actually going for the recall to protect this mid lane.
Yeah, critically, this next Drake, the Hextech Soul Point Drake for CGA, the Hextech Soul Drake for AXIZ, going to be up in 35 seconds. And for that fight, Nap probably won't fall quite so easily again. That's a stopwatch sitting in the inventory. That's a big pickup.
Yeah, I don't know if AXIZ can contest this. They've lost all vision here, and Megaman and Ozuka both chunked, eating the separate combo of the Sleepy Trouble Bubble and the Paddle Star here. And with 15 seconds to go, even with Hextech Gates here, AXIZ probably just have to watch this one go without even trying to get close.
Yeah, they'd be flying blind. They could get there quickly, but look at that vision control around the bottom quadrant jungle for CGA, as they are just continuing to siege as well. They have 20 seconds left on this Baron. They want to make the most of it, as that's the depth charge to just eliminate Asuka. That's one of your biggest team fighting tools gone, but look at the flanks. They're trying to find something. AXIZ, it's do or die. Megaman looking for the shuffle into the Nar combo. Can they actually find something? As it's going to be the Cyclone into the backline. Sanctuary set up. He finds one on Takaito. That's so huge, but look at Jinx now. It's her turn to break fire, but the Moonlight Vigil finds so much damage, and that's going to be CGA getting routed out. It's the 2-for-2 trade, and look at Megaman, deep TP flank coming in. Sangchu into the stopwatch on a sliver. Kassin trying to pick it up. He walked right into him. No, the Aphelios going to fall, but it might still be AXIZ's victory here, as they can at least pick up Nap in the back half. What a fiesta!
Okay, Kassin now. Walk away, Kassin. Don't do this. You asked me, Infinite Dodge, about Aphelios versus Jinx, and this was why I hesitated to say Jinx would win that here. I have faith in the Aphelios supremacy, and Sangchu made that look great. Kassin, okay, will not be punished by this. And Megaman and Sangchu, pardon me, played that fight incredibly well. Megaman has not died yet this game. 4-0-2 right now, and CGA have to respect these flank angles from Swamp, from Yellow Yoshi. When they have equal numbers, look at what this comp can do.
Yeah, and things really feel they've done a complete 180 here. I mean, this is Hextech Souls. We do get a quick replay if you want to break this fight down for us.
I mean, it just comes down to that flank that we looked for the last time, right? Last time it was Yellow Yoshi and Megumin, but they had members dead. This time, everybody's nice and healthy, ready to go. Only Ozuka is down, no hostile takeover, but Nap's a little bit late to the party as well, so it allows them to get on the backline. And Hybrid has bought so much time, but the Moonlight Vigil here, man, the Infernum, that's what I'm talking about for team fights with Aphelios, where, sure, you might not outrange the Jinx, but you get one good Infernum on the enemy team, and it works. It's scary how close this was. Despite that, though, Hybrid still almost killing Sangchu, Nap almost killing Yellow Yoshi. If any of them had gone down here, then Megumin can't 1v2 at this point. So it's still incredibly close, and CGA's lead is still an advantage to their credit.
Yeah. 4K is the gold lead, but at this stage in the game, who knows how impactful that will be. It's going to be the Ken barrage just for wave clear, but look at Megumin finding Hybrid! Are you kidding me? With that shuffle, Chicken Man makes good, and this is really starting to feel like AXIZ's game. I can't believe the turnaround we're seeing. They have red-white. They're going to continue to siege here.
Yeah, they could look to end here because they need the damage from Hybrid for CGA to win a lot of these fights with Hextech Soul as well right now. If anybody from CGA gets caught out, they can absolutely punish here. The slow is applicable. Baron coming up in 30 seconds, same time as Hybrid here. With the gate, CGA might be able to contest this. I don't know if I like that AXIZ is looking to play a little bit fast and loose.
Yeah, they do send Yellow Yoshi back to deal with this wave. That's critical. Don't want any backdoor shenanigans coming out. Nap can absolutely burn turrets to the ground with that trial by fire, so definitely safe to go and defend your base, but they didn't clear out any vision, did AXIZ. Double pinks for CGA. I mean, they still have a Farsight in the pit. They have so much vision right now, but Asuka gonna block the paddle star to set up the engage. We're gonna find the alley-oop. Megaman's gonna pop off. Everything goes AXIZ's way, despite a little. Oh well, bye-bye Asuka. But they still pick up the victory for now. I mean, Hybrid is back on the map. Can he impact this in time? The cannon barrage. They're going for round 2, but look at the shuffle. It was still in the back pocket. Megaman even has the stopwatch to set things up, but Nap goes into the GA. Hybrid could get excited here. Can they contest this into the Baron? Doesn't look like it with the Hextech Soul as well. I mean, this is getting really, really dicey for CGA.
Yeah, and I'm just watching their base as well. Infinite dodge, the supers pushing in the mid lane here, thankfully balanced out by the other supers. But CGA side was pushing. And you know what? I consider that a win for AXIZ. They got the Baron at the end of the day here. And great turnaround, great punish from them. We had already said, you know, Jinx, Baron, they spawn at the same time here. So even with Hybrid running as fast as he can, AXIZ had the numbers advantage. They took great use of it. And now, yeah, sure, there's a 1.5k gold lead for CGA. But that doesn't mean much compared to that 4,000 from earlier. Now, we do get to see the setup to this sort of play. And this was the pick onto Hybrid, which got everything there. Yes, CGA was setting up vision around Baron, but they left the bot side unattended. And that was what allowed this flank to happen here. This got a little bit risky when they sent Yellow Yoshi to the bot side. He doesn't have TP to this fight. But the way AXIZ turn here is the massive thing. They don't overcommit to Baron. As soon as they see anybody, Azuka flashes over for the hostile takeover to set up the pick. The Baron was never the call. The Baron was just the bait for what happens after.
Yeah, masterfully played by AXIZ. Be so huge for them to finally pick up another W here with a direct competitor in the standings. Double Uber buffs. Sitting ready to go. A nice little Sun Disc as well to fall back on if things get a little bit less than ideal, like all that long-range poke is, but look at them. They weathered the storm. That's not what's been happening for the past 15 minutes, RMC. They're in a much better spot than if that happened 10 minutes ago. I mean, they're still threatening this base.
True. That happened 10 minutes ago. They die. Pretty much there. Even with that Sun Disc up. But this time, the push gets stopped, but they don't lose anybody off in the back end of it. And with this, I don't know if AXIZ can find anything else. There's only a minute left on Baron, and they have to recall, have to set up. Elder is also coming up in a minute here, Dodge. And for all that AXIZ have closed the gap massively in the last 10-15 minutes here, Elder alone will decide everything. Whichever team gets Elder and can actually hold on to it can probably just win out this game because the fights have been that close.
Yeah, it's what the buff was designed for, right? To close out games, and it often does a masterful job at that. It's rare you see a team defend against Elder in the late game. How do you want to see AXIZ attack getting to that Elder, keeping the vision setup protected, and making sure they're the ones who pick that up.
Well, with their composition here, Dodge, they need to be proactive with it. AXIZ has been winning fights when they can set up ambushes or when they can get the flanks off here. So they need to do that here, maintain that vision, and try and actually fight CGA before you get to the dragon. If you're in the river facing off with CGA, well, we've seen the siege situation favor them. The barrels, the poke from Zoe is really, really strong. Even under turret there, CGA can poke you out. So AXIZ is all about getting those initial angles, making sure that they are the ones pulling the trigger first.
Yeah, and that's a nice trigger to pull on that red gun to find Kaito chunked to half already, but look at the long distance damage coming down. Not as effective as it's been so far. The cannon barrage not finding very much. Now the Trap's just trying to zone Sanctu off from rejoining the team, but the Gnar's doing work to find out Nap. And that's the GP taken off the board. No GA, hostile takeover. Kassin hitting his own teammates, and that is one key carry off the map. They can turn for this Elder now, you have to feel.
Okay, so this is better, but still not completely safe for AXIZ. In that Elder takes a long... It's basically a Baron, right? It takes a long time to kill here, and Hybrid is still up, but Hybrid has decided to disengage. CGA are giving Elder away here, and I don't know if I like this call from CGA one bit. Infinite George, yes, you don't want to coin flip it there, but can you hold against Elder?
I mean, there's no Baron to trade for. There's no consolation prize. This is going to be real scary stuff. You've won team fights up to this point, but AXIZ has been slowly making more and more of a case for themselves. Now they have double dragon buff coming through. I mean, this could just be the end of the game coming through right now.
Yeah, mid inhib going to go down. It's not defended whatsoever. There's no turrets. AXIZ playing this by the books. They're actually backing out here. I wonder if they're going to shop and just push top here. I almost feel like you could just sit in the base, wait for your minions to come in and push with them.
Yeah, critically, Elder buff, first Elder buff doesn't last as long as your typical Baron buff, right? So they don't have a huge timer to reset, spend their gold, and get back out to attack that top lane as 5 with the Elder still in pocket. They have about a minute and a half here, but they get the nice recall set up, nothing interrupted, no hybrid rockets or anything like that, and... now it's just going to be about completing the task, right? Crossing the finish line. We'll see if they can do it.
Looks like they're actually going to try and fight the Baron with this buff here. There'll be 30 seconds of overlap between Baron spawn and having that Elder buff. 30 seconds is more than enough time for AXIZ to burn down the Baron itself here. So AXIZ, okay, they're transitioning buff to buff instead. And step one of that is setting up vision. They're denying all that vision that CJ just put down not too long ago, but I need to see that vision line extended past the river here, Dodge. We saw over and over again, even at that dragon play, it's about cutting CJ off before they get to the objective, and the vision has been key for that.
Yeah, absolutely. The case, they are going to try and get the shove in on top lane, try and make CGA respond to multiple threats at the same time. Yeah, they already have 2 lanes of supers piling in. They don't want to have to deal with another siege while they are preoccupied with the Baron. This could lead to some sort of ruckus, but that Elder's still on for 30 seconds.
Yeah, Megaman now pushing up that mid lane here. So top side's looking like a 4v4 Kassin.
Yeah, it does flash early. Isn't going to have that to try and get into the pit for any potential steal. Dominoes in the line for AXIZ. It's just about giving it that flick and watching them fall. See if they can convert here as the Baron is live. They have so much Baron damage. Swamp behind the pit as well takes it over. There's the cannon barrage. Just the zoning ultimates. The Wombo coming out. Yellow Yoshi maybe trading a bit more aggressively than was needed there. Going to give his life for it, but now it's the Baron buff with 2 waves of supers RMC. I think they're going to do it.
This is risky because it's a 4v5 here. Yellow Yoshi diving in. I feel like that was a split goal because that was a beautiful Mega Gnar into the entire enemy team, but there was literally no follow-up. Nobody was there to be able to get in range, and because of that, great, you got Baron, but it's the same situation CGA had on their second Baron when they lost Nap. And now you're only going to get effectively 1 minute of push, or maybe 1.5 minutes of push with that Baron buff here. You do have supers coming in mid and bot, but it's not the most effective use, and as the game stalls out later and later, it's not like the scaling that greatly favors AXIZ here, Dodge. CGA scaling is just as good. So it feels like both teams are just going for that one last massive coin flip.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta keep winning the fights. The execution's been decent for AXIZ so far, but all it takes is 1 minute of down tempo. You know, one mistake, one action that doesn't leave you set up to get that next objective and win that next fight, and it's all over. We're at that stage of the game where one push ends things, and AXIZ seem a bit hesitant to try and make that one push.
Yeah, they're just waiting for Yoshi to join them right now or to get in position for that split push. They still have the Hex XO, and it's been instrumental thus far in potentially trying to find picks here. Baron buff, minute and 30 here, and they're sieging up this top lane. I don't know how effective Yellow Yoshi will be with the split push pressure when you already have supers in those lanes.
Yeah, and it's not even going to be a red buff taken away despite all this map control from AXIZ. Still CJ managing to squeak out the tiny, tiny victories. But these double waves going to prove lots and lots of pressure for Nap to deal with. Opens things up well for AXIZ in the top lane. Oh, Kaito, no flash into the locket. That might just be it. That's a lot of big cooldowns down. Finally, AXIZ breaking the back of CGA. They'll pick up the third inhib, and this is the guaranteed win state, right? There's nothing left. No, why are you taking the Hex Gates out? End the game!
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what Yoshi's doing. Like, what? Like I said, don't split push. You've got supers there. Just group up and siege together here. Get the poke down. Megumin getting absolutely chunked means that this time they have to disengage.
Oh my god, the engage right onto Sangchu as well as the rest of the team's getting chunked out. No, not like this. It won't happen. Sangchu manages to not let his team throw this game away and will even pick up for himself the pentakill here to close it on out. No! Scumbag Swamp pulled it away. Ah, but the Aphelios 1v9 dream was realized. AXIZ finally pick up another W here in round robin number 2. Or are we on to 3 now? It's been a long season already.
We're still early yet. I mean, as a fan of AXIZ